Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to the ecoChristian podcast, where we're exploring what it means to be Christian on planet Earth. I'm your host, Caleb Cray Haynes. If you're watching things at home, some of us are not on planet Earth right now, which is kind of wild if you're keeping track of this whole Artemis 2 situation, integrity, going to the moon. I mean, you're just like, I'm sitting at home on my chair and I'm looking at my television and I'm seeing a live feed from astronauts who are thousands of miles away in space. Are you with me? Like, you might be living in the future if, right? So many thoughts here, honestly, and so many thoughts around this conversation of what does it mean to be human is wrapped up in here. And I'm tempted just to riff an episode here on this because, friends, it should just beget more questions around what it means to be Christian and what it means to be human on earth as we continue to explore and sink into these desires to explore every frontier. And so that's all wrapped up in here. Honestly, I claw at a lot of that in my book, Earthbound Christian. But that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing here today, friends. But we are in the season of resurrection. So happy Easter. Are you with me? Happy season of the resurrection. And it's so amazing. Everything around me is resurrecting here in Middle Tennessee. Things are growing and popping up everywhere. And I'm just outside. I can hardly get any work done because I'm just like, I got to build this pergola right now, But do you ever just hear people, and maybe you've done this, that say that, I just don't, I would, but I don't have a green thumb. You guys ever hear that? I've always heard, like, my entire life, I've heard people say that, but it's like, it's become for some people like this thing that they wear, it's like across their chest, it's like, hey, look at me, I'm the person that doesn't have a green thumb or something. It's like part of the ethos they've proudly adopted about them, like part of the persona or something, like everything I touch dies, like keep your distance, and it's kind of said in laughter. And and even some folks are like, you're inviting them to clean up litter with you on a Saturday, and they're like, I would, but I don't have a green thumb. It's like it's gone a little far. You know what though? I'm gonna say something here. And I welcome all snarky emails to me later. If you want to, ecochristianpodcast@gmail.com. Here's the deal. I don't think I'm buying it. I don't know that I'm buying what they're selling, if that's a way to say it. Like, hear me out, okay? No one was born with a green thumb, okay? Having a green thumb, okay, say this with air quotes. Having a green thumb, we made that up. Like, people made that up. If having a green thumb is about having a relationship to, like, plants or your garden or nature or whatever, it is just that. It is a relationship. It's something you actually have to work at in order to, like, become better at it, like to apply yourself to learn what the other needs, right? So it's not like a superstition or some prepackaged genetic thing that you maybe didn't get. Now, could there be people who are better than other people? Sure. Anyway, TBH, friends, we all just come from the same place. We all come from the soil. So this spring, I'm encouraging you, try something new. Get out there. Get a green Sharpie and just color all over your thumb. I mean, it's worst case scenario, you kill some plants. I kill plants all the time. Plants die. People die too. Welcome to the circle of life. Are you with me? But the answer is not to engage at all, but to sink further into that creative relationship with creation. And there's a million ways to do that. And today, special guest back for, I think, the third time on this podcast is my farmer friend, professor, Jason Adkins, legend. And we're going to talk with him about planting trees and tree equity and resurrection and so many other good things. I'm serious. Just hang on. And a couple other quick things. Would love to see you get on board with the ecoChristian book launch adventure this spring. Friends, get on board. This is a great time to get with a group of people in your church or a book club or whatever and talk about earth care. And I'm so grateful for my friends with Arasha USA sharing my book, Earthbound Christian, on their Eastertide 2026 reading list. Shout out for 12 favorite books reflecting on hope, honesty, and loving engagement with creation. So appreciate that. And you can find Earthbound Christian anywhere online good books are found. Okay, friends, without further ado, let's connect with Jason Adkins. Okay, friends, I'm back here with the one and only Jason Adkins, Farmer Jason. Some of you know him, poet, prophet, farmer. I was going to say preacher, but I guess preacher kind of sometimes. Sometimes we get some good sermons from you.
Preach to trees. Yeah, sometimes I have a captive audience and ply my trade.
Yeah.
A propaganda trade.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's been one of the sad things because I've been missing farmer breakfast, and I figured out lately. I think that's where people get a good dose of Jason homilies. It's just sneaking into farmer's breakfast,
whether they like it or not. It's the bait and switch. The bacon and switch.
Yeah. Another favorite thing I love about Jason is that he's quippy. He's quippy. Yesterday he told me I was putting the Riz back in risen at the resurrection, the Easter Sunday sermon. So yeah.
Every time we said he is risen indeed, I couldn't help but think of you and your shirt.
Oh man. The funny thing was, so Easter is like the one of the few times in the year I'll give myself permission to go out and get something quote unquote new to wear for Easter. And so we went to like 3 different thrift stores last week. So I don't know if the carbon footprint part of it really worked out, but the kids are looking for Easter dresses and the whole thing. And I find this shirt, I find the older I get, I'm just give me some more Hawaiian vibes. Mm-hmm. But I find this shirt and it's flowery and pink, and I'm like, this just this says this is what we're doing for Easter.
Yeah.
Anyway, but also the older I get, it's feeling a little bit more like fat guy in a little coat situation, anyway, so I couldn't quite button it, and it looked correct around my, extra area in the middle. And anyway, so I just kind of let it hang out there, which I kind of felt like that was how the shirt was meant to be worn anyway.
Yeah.
So it did. Yeah. Anyway,
I felt like I was with Don Johnson on his day off.
Love it. All right, friends. So we're here sitting on the campus of Treevival Urban Farm right now, and one of the exciting things that I get to do is work with Jason more on a regular basis, which is a new development from the last time that we recorded together, which has been a hot minute ago now. Yeah. I don't remember what episode that is. We've done a couple ecoChristian podcasts together, and I want to say that first episode we did together, that's I want to say one of the highest streaming episodes that we've done. So look out. It's a good one.
Let's keep it going, Caleb.
Let's keep the risen. Yeah, we're gonna be toast after this. All right. So Jason? What's 3 things people need to know about you, real quick? What do you think?
Well,
or real slow.
In high school, I was a pole vaulter, an extremely moderate pole vaulter.
Are you making this up right now?
No, I wouldn't kid about flying through the air on a stick, man. Um, um, I'm really interested in and have been like part of intentional Christian community. And let's see, a third thing. Well, I'm a dad of 5, kind of 7 if you include stepchildren. So if you include animals, I've lost count.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
also an interesting fact about me, I think I get to climb trees that I propagated from a tiny little stick. And that's one of the coolest things. Like I thought about that the other day. Somebody said like, you'll plant trees that your children will climb. I was like, I think that's already happened. I guess I can die happy.
Wow.
Right?
That's really cool.
And my kids are so cool. Every one of them have so many different like wonderful things about them, and a couple of them are actually 4 of them are kind of working with the earth in different ways, from nature education to natural foodscapes and installing edible landscapes, and Lincoln and Jeremy are working at the farm and in the bike shop. So that's all really gratifying, seeing them in their green collar work.
That is huge. You could just stop now.
I could.
Yeah.
I could. If the economy were better, I could.
Right. And there's always pole vaulting to fall back on.
Yeah. We have to dust off.
That's
that fiberglass.
Yeah. That's really cool. Oh, I love that. Climbing trees you plant. When is the best time to plant a tree?
Yeah, so here in North America, we're planting in dormancy, which is in our zone, 7B, Tennessee. We plant from late October to late February. And it's basically when the leaves are off the tree. That's the easy marker. Well, like when the leaves are on off the tree, then you plant new ones. That's when the roots can really establish themselves. They don't have to worry about the energy going into leaves and also the water loss, because when they put out leaves, they're losing water. Leaves are water pumps. The whole tree's a water pump. And so when they're losing water but unable to replace it with established roots, then they're drying out, they're desiccating. So you want to get them in the ground as soon as you can after the leaves fall, most things being equal, so that they can go ahead and get those roots established, and so that by the time spring hits, they've got a fully connected water system in place.
That's a really good answer. The correct answer was 20 years ago. But that was a really good answer too. So I'll give you that one as well.
Okay, I defer to that one. That's even better.
Yeah, no, I kind of hate that saying, because it always makes me feel a little defeated. Yeah. Whenever someone,
like
is like
the boat.
Yeah, you should have done it forever ago. So
yeah,
it feels like, oh man.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm getting to the point, I'm actually at the point now that I'm thinking about it, that I did plant trees 20 years ago. I think that's exactly when I started planting trees, is around 2002, 2003. Wow. So the second best time being right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
good
still
answers.
Going. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. So friends, keeping score at home, if you're following, some of the news these days on trees, that if you get I actually did see a guy in a coffee shop this morning reading a physical newspaper, which I was like, wow,
talk to that man,
right? Anyway, but you may have noticed that in the last year, the national USA deforestation has increased. Like, trees are going out of style right now. In March of 2025, the USDA directed federal agencies to examine ways to increase timber production across 280 million acres of national forest and other public lands. An emergency order came rolling back environmental protections on more than 112 million acres, or nearly 60% of national forest. Crazy. Followed by in April last year, so a year ago, and at the same time, the U.S. Forest Service was ordered to increase 25% of the volume of timber being offered for logging. Anyway, this is all from a report issued by Yale School for the Environment. But like so many environmental issues, this feeds into the greater issue. We talk about climate feedback loops, because deforestation breaks apart ecosystems, soil structure, destabilizes weather patterns, right? We could talk about increased wildfires happen then, which further cause the cycle. Meanwhile, of course, in other places, chunks of rainforests are still being cut down for cattle grazing, and so on and on. And so there's never been a more important time to plant trees, perhaps, in maybe human history. So Jason and I are in Nashville, and I think Nashville, and maybe the South in general, is one of those places where people can often take tree canopy for granted. But especially in urban spaces like Nashville these days, it seems like so much of our tree canopy is being lost to development, and you're just seeing little patch after little patch. And now we just had this ice storm. I don't know. Have you noticed that? You feel like?
Yeah. Wow. I just feel like you just laid down a lot of sad.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to get the sad all out there on the floor and just look at it.
Yeah. It's just like, I think I'm really experiencing a lot of grief over the lifting of these protections and knowing like the machine has never had it better. And just thinking about all those vulnerable ecosystems just like ready to be slashed down just makes me so sad. Like there's just, you can't stand in top of every tree, but man, you just want to defend those precious creatures. And especially as you learn more about them and learn their beauty, their ancient wisdom, like they're elder brothers of creation and elder sisters of our world, and they carry an ancient time, and we live in their grace. Like we only live by the grace of trees. So yeah, it's very hard to hear, and how foolish that is. And yeah, and as I watch these large trees being felled, I just think, yes, I never better time to plant trees and to protect a tree, because every tree that we could protect, you can't really outpace the clearing of these forests with planting, 1-inch caliper trees. You think about a 2 or 3 foot oak that's been taken down in the Napier public housing, like the thousands of gallons of water that will sequester in a single rainstorm, the tens of thousands of pounds of carbon that sequesters, that's just chipped up and thrown away. So, if you can protect trees, that's even better than planting them. We'll have to do both, of course. Yeah, that is sad to hear. And I think about the counsel that, what if we just ate meat 1 meal a day? Like that's a modest proposal perhaps for people from the United States. That would be, I think about Jonathan Safran Foer in We Are the Weather, talking about that being maybe the best kind of campaign that we could get on, because it's something we can do now. We don't have to wait for politicians to do it. Lowering your consumption or eliminating your consumption of industrial meat leaves the forests intact that would otherwise be raised for, cattle grazing in places that aren't ideal for cattle grazing. And, just the carbon footprint of meat, industrial meat system. I'm not talking so much about grass-fed pasture meat. That's a different story. Like, and it can be a help rather than hindrance if done correctly. But yeah, just some thoughts. I'm not sure. I may have strayed off. I think I was still my heart was still hurting from all those statistics you were saying. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I appreciate you going there, because I think that it's really important to remember that we hold these things within the same breath, which is like, well, quite literally, the oxygen we're breathing. Mm-hmm. But, this work of over here trying to talk about, oh yeah, it's really important to plant trees. And then what does that mean if we turn around and then our very lifestyles or behavior, or even the way we eat, is actually highly promoting deforestation or the kind of lifestyle that really harms creation. Mm-hmm. And so, trying to hold all that together and creating, a lifestyle, but a community and a value system that is good on the whole, right? And that's so much, I feel like, of, obviously where we're trying to spend our time uncovering in our conversations on the farm and in this podcast of all the ways in which our lives are already intersecting, mm-hmm. Or not intersecting in this work as it should be. But
right, yeah, eating is an agricultural act, as Wendell Berry said, and Carlo Petrini, the founder of the slow food movement, kind of riffed off that and said eating is a ecological act. Right? And so you can't help but intersect that line, right? Eating is something we have trouble doing without. We are all intersecting those lines every day, and how we eat, as again Wendell Berry said, determines to a considerable extent how the earth will be used.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is tree equity, and I realized that's I think that's been a bit more of a hot term floating around the last mm-hmm. couple years, and I think some of that's due to
so American forest?
Yes, American forest. Yeah, the American forest and the grants that have been floating around tree equity. So tree equity is one of those terms flying around, and recently, and we'll get into maybe tree cycle here in a bit, but recently I was talking with some of our youth at Tree Cycle, at a couple different points of like, hey, so when I use the term tree equity, what comes to mind? And it's always like really insightful, like what they hear, and when I was like 12 or 15 or something, I would have just blank stared you in the face. Probably even at the term equity, but mm-hmm. but some really good responses kind of came up.
Oh yeah,
and I want to say Lincoln even at one point, or some other kids were like talking to me about like equal rights for trees.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I was like, okay, which honestly is kind of the best, and I also want to have that conversation.
Yes, right.
Which is kind of a whole side thing. But this is actually happening with rivers right now in some parts of the world. There's a growing international movement to protect rivers and freshwater ecosystems, that we all depend upon. It's called like Rights for Rivers, I think. You can look it up.
I love that. Yeah. I've heard murmurings of that.
Yeah. But that's not necessarily the kind of equity that we're talking about when we talk about tree equity. But I thought, if it's okay, I'd love to pick your brain on unpacking that term for us a little bit and what we mean by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the distinction that Abraham Joshua Heschel makes between like information and insight. And he's like, information is basically adding more facts to an existing paradigm. But when you get insight, it like shifts paradigm. So you collect information in a different way, on a different framework, right? And we all experience this in a lot of different ways. Like I remember hearing the word food desert for the first time. And my brain kind of rejected it because I had this idea that if you were unhealthy due to diet-related illness, that it was kind of your fault. Like that's how I was raised back. And I'm hearing this in the early 2000s, probably 2005. So back in a benighted era of my developing mind, that was kind of a shock to my system. But then it started, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see zip codes and neighborhoods surrounded by no groceries and all fast food and corner stores, and then if you live there, which I have for a while now, you start to like see, okay, this is a systemic type of problem. And tree equity is new to me, like it's a new term, and it was American Forests, which happens to be the oldest nonprofit for trees in the nation, and they are working with the Department of Forestry to try to encourage tree planting and tree care in areas of the city which have a low percentage of canopy. It's really interesting to think. It kind of lays very neatly on top of all the intersectional sort of racisms that exist, like economic, food, and now I'm thinking about trees. And you sort of know, like in poor parts of town, you often see a lot of concrete, a lot of strip malls, not a lot of trees. You sort of know that. But then to think about and look at a map that shows you, and there's a tree equity map, which we access to determine where we need to plant most urgently, and where you see the temperature difference in a neighborhood with such few trees. So our neighborhood where we are, a fairly historically impoverished part of Nashville, also historically non-white part of Nashville, is also a place where there's a lot of an absence of canopy. So we have we're a high priority area in terms of canopy. And unsurprisingly, we're about 12 degrees hotter than the average temperature in our city. And when you combine that with a place, I talk about like Forest Hills, about 5 miles away as a crow flies, is about 5 or 6 degrees cooler than the average. So our part of town is 17 degrees or more, sometimes hotter than a affluent area across town. And this is an area where people walk more, where people have less reliable air conditioning. And so that compounds and ramifies in, bad health outcomes. Health is said to be, by many accounts, to be the number one weather-related killer in the United States. And that's expected to get about 10 times worse in 10 years. So planting trees now, back to your point of like the best time to plant trees is 20 years ago. If we plant trees now, as the conditions worsen in general, we're hoping that those trees will mature to mitigate those health impacts. And health impacts are just part of what make trees wonderful for a neighborhood.
Yeah. That's really good. And I will say, if those listening haven't like explored that map, it's a really great tool. I think it's just treeequityscore.org maybe. It's a quick search find, and you put in your address or the address of your city or your church or whatever you want to look up. And they've kind of made it in grids. They've kind of made it look a little more black and white than it maybe is. But you can see kind of in color. So the more orange your area is, the higher at risk your neighborhood is, or the lower your canopy is, I would say, or more in need of trees. And so you can kind of see a visual for your city or your neighborhood, and kind of where you're at on the quote tree equity score, which is a really helpful tool I find in this work.
Yeah, it's treeequityscore.org/map. If you're driving, please wait.
Yeah, don't do it while you're driving.
Over to look at that. I know you're urgently ready to see it, but
right. Yeah,
just be careful.
Nearest parking lot.
Yeah,
find it. Yeah. Would you kind of share a little bit more about, in your experience, how you understand that trees, what trees do for a community?
Yeah. Man, one of my earliest memories is standing under a mulberry tree in Wilmore, Kentucky at the United Methodist Church, just eating mulberries till my face was purple. I didn't even know it was called a mulberry. I just
Yeah.
knew it tasted real
Yeah.
good. I guess I had some good instincts because I
That's
was like,
right.
purple berry, like try it.
Yeah, put this in my body. Yeah, yeah. Thankfully,
Now,
that worked out.
I guess I've planted probably 50 mulberries since then. I would love. One of the things when we first moved into this neighborhood is we would show the kids where all the mulberry trees were. And we always knew it was mulberry season when kids would come around with purple faces. And so the birds really readily spread those mulberries, they pop up everywhere. So as we plant them, there's a multiplier effect. So the more we plant, the more the birds plant. And so we see them coming up everywhere. I love that. I want, in some sense, I'm just hoping to experience from the adult side, just kids enjoying fruit. I love eating fruit. I love seeing kids, just the joy of reaching out and picking food. There's something so primal, elemental, eschatological about seeing just that elegant travel from hand to mouth of fruit. It feels like something of Eden. And the Eden Project is what we've named our tree planting movement for the Nazarene Church. So food is one thing. I mean, tree fruit, is probably the opposite of industrial meat in terms of food. It is a food that actually sequesters carbon, right? I mean, how cool is that? It actually feeds pollinators instead of eliminating their habitat. It holds rainwater. It builds topsoil. It provides shade, cools community. Like all of these gifts. It also makes a great jungle gym. You can just climb it and be happy. It does reduce stress levels. It decreases violence in communities. It decreases violence in prisons if people can see a tree. There have been studies to say that communities with more trees are less violent. Communities that are less hot are less violent. There's some crazy studies that show a relationship between increased heat and violent crime. So I can't think of a better thing to do for a community than plant a tree. Like the relationships are hard to number between human health and healthy tree canopy, and that's not a surprise. Like that relationship has been hinted at everywhere. Like the integrity of the forest and the integrity of humanity are inextricable.
Yeah, there's so much here. I think that I appreciate this conversation because, again, I kind of started out by saying how much I feel like take trees for granted, and we do it in ways that we just don't realize how much trees really, really do for us. One of the things, and I'll cite this later, and I've spoken about it some already this spring in Creation Justice Ministries annual resource about trees this year, Canopy for Creation. We created this cool graphic which just kind of showed all the little different things that trees do for us that we don't realize. And it reminded me of a quote unquote joke that you told, years ago. I remember, I don't know if you came up with it yourself or whatever, but it's like, imagine we had a technology, you know what I'm saying?
I know where you're going.
Yeah. Imagine there was a machine that, cleaned the air.
I really enjoy that one.
Yeah.
I do. I don't know. I think I was talking to some young people about trees, and I'm always so fascinated by these techno overreaches, there's this company talking about like sending reflective matter, and like this is a very serious talk now. I mean, it's been serious, but there's a company proposing to send reflective matter into the upper atmosphere where it reduces like the solar gain of the earth, which could do all sorts of things. And it's actually a decision you're making for humanity and not just like a single company.
Yeah.
So that is wild that that's happening. I read that in the climate news in the New York Times the other day. And, you know, like it was a serious undertaking. And I'm just like, oh, wow. Like, and just like to think about the simplicity of nature's elegant solutions, you know, just like, you know, so I'd be standing there. I was like, you know, I know there's a lot of carbon pollution, but I think scientists are I really believe in them. Like they're going to develop this machine that like takes carbon out of the air. And actually it's going to send oxygen back into the air, because why not, right? And it's going to be beautiful. It's going to make fruit. It's like, what if we could also like have it absorb rainwater so it doesn't flood, you know, provide building materials? And what if this technology didn't have to run off fossil fuels? What if it was just like running off like solar power, like totally solar powered, right?
Yeah.
Just like live on the ambient conditions, the rain that falls, the soil underneath our feet, but mainly on the sunlight. Like, what if, you know?
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Usually a tree does that.
Yeah.
That's a tree. Yeah. I love that. And there's so much there, and also you hinted at the, you know, all the studies on like the increased mental well-being for a community and the decrease of violence, and how all of these are overlaid with just having a tree canopy. I was actually talking with a lady at church yesterday about this, and she was actually asking if we would be able to come plant trees at her place, and she's out like in Old Hickory. And I was like, yeah, we could look at it, but backed up to their property is like a forest between them and I think Percy Priest Lake. And she's like, those aren't our trees, they're not on our property, but I just love sitting out there. And she was telling me, she's like, and I swear, man, whenever I just sit there and just look at these trees for a while, it just does me so much good, you know. And I was like, yeah, there's actually a lot of science around that, you know, but we don't really realize how our well-being is actually tethered in ways that we don't even see, other than, of course, climate resilience and flooding mitigation and, you know, cleaning the air and all these things. But like, there's something else going on too, between our mental health and this canopy. Yeah. So one of the things, you know, the connections that you were drawing there with tree equity is how, you know, these correlations between, you know, modern day tree canopy maps in communities that have historically been redlined is kind of one of those issues, right? And that layering on social and economic factors like race and income and even asthma rates, like you just see these trends continue. And one of the terms that just came to me maybe a year ago, we're putting this resource I mentioned together and kind of writing about this was that, you know what, this is not just like a tree desert, but it's like a tree apartheid. Yeah. You know, and it's not like just something that happened, occurred, but it's a reflection, right, of a systemic injustice that created unequal access to the benefits that trees provide. And so, you know, that's something that once that clicked, you realized, oh wow, there's more work here. There's a sinister element to this of how people groups have been further marginalized systemically. But thinking through this, I'm wondering how you've also seen this then as not just like the solutions aren't necessarily just like showing up uninvited to someone's house and planting a tree in their yard. You're going to need this, right? But it's like relational work. Yeah.
It's interesting. I heard one tree organization, we were talking about planting trees in our nearby neighborhood, and they were like, don't plant trees there. Like, we tried that, and somebody just, I guess neighbors just came and like dug them up, and like they were gone. I was like, oh, that's really sad. I was like, who planted the trees? And they're like, volunteers. I was like, volunteers from the community? And they're like, no, we've got our own volunteers. We just kind of went in and planted the trees without talking to any of the neighbors.
Right.
Which is wild. Like, imagine somebody showing up in a suburban neighborhood
Right.
and just planting a tree in somebody's yard.
Yeah.
Or in front, like in the median in their, or part of their, like in the grass strip between the sidewalk and the road. Like, you'd be like, who are you? And like, why are you here?
Yeah.
But like, to go into a neighborhood that is experiencing poverty, that just seems like okay for some. So it's kind of, kind of an interesting residue of like imperialism, that you just decide to do something and you just go do it, right? So I think being respectful of neighbors is like really critical, because when we don't sort of based on our experience here, we don't just show up and plant. There are places that are kind of just abandoned and kind of away from anywhere that I'd be willing to just like, I kind of want to hop I guess I'm on record now, so I'm not do it, but I want to hop the fence and plant a lot of trees between the highway and the J.C. Napier Sudicum University Terrace public housing that's right across the street from us, because there's just a line of sight between, actually the fourth busiest intersection in the United States is the 2440 intersection right here. And just particulates, smog, are just raining down on this community. And predictably, respiratory problems between the elderly and the young, of course everybody in between, but especially vulnerable populations, are really bad there. And Kimberly Jackson with a group called HIDE has done a lot of interesting work about environmental justice and air quality. And so some researchers from TSU. And it's really interesting. I was just thinking about this slide I saw years ago, and I can't remember the percentages, but there was a few week period in Atlanta back in, what was it, the 90s? Was it the 92 Olympics? I've forgotten. I apologize. Maybe 88.
Yeah, you should remember that.
No, but they closed down the highways. And like visits to the emergency room with respiratory related illnesses dropped dramatically.
Wow.
For the period, like as soon as like it started going down. So it was just like this one rare shot that we got of like, oh, if we stop pouring poisons in the lungs of the people, they start like having better health outcomes. Like it was a pretty dramatic shift. And I'd be interested to know if there are any studies around COVID for when things got lighter, if respiratory illnesses like let up.
Oh, interesting.
But definitely a big deal in terms of like human health. And and even the placement of those highways has a racist like history. Like they went right through like historically black neighborhoods and avoided, they would make strange curves to avoid wealthier neighbors. And so those impacts just stack, layer.
There's a lot of there with the work of social repair and rebuilding trust and listening to those voices that have been ignored, and that's involved in canopy restoration, and while acknowledging like the dice have been loaded against these communities. And so it's the long work and as well.
Well, can I just say also that your point, which I strayed away from a little, was like planting trees is about starting a relationship. And that relationship starts with the humans that are planting them and where they're planted. And so if you don't pay attention to that, then you're kind of birthing children for calamity. Those trees are not going to have the kind of long life and the protection that they need to thrive if the humans around them don't know them, respect them, and have an investment in their thriving. And so we love seeing kids from a neighborhood plant trees in their neighborhood. They've got a stake in seeing that tree protected. We've never had the experience of just having someone come up and just dig up our trees. because they're planted by people who live there, ideally and often. And if they're not, we try to make relationships with people, churches, otherwise that do live there. You know, if we don't have a personal relationship, we want to connect with them. I remember Dave Jackie, who wrote Edible Forest Gardens, and he's brilliant for food forest pioneer. We had the privilege of having it at the campus, and he looked at our trees, and he said a couple things. He said, "Don't plant trees, plant ecosystems." He was very big on not just planting the trees, but the support plants around them that nurture them. But he also said something that stuck. He said, "All of my failures have been social failures." He's like, these systems are fairly easy. These ecological systems are fairly easy to put in place compared to the difficulty of managing the social relationships that protect and sustain those systems.
Wow.
So
that's that's insight right there.
It is.
Yeah.
And I've found that to be true. The hard part's the social part. And if you don't pay attention to it, all the rest of it kind of falls apart.
Yeah. I think that's just huge wisdom right there for those of us, and even for like a person in a neighborhood or for a church wanting to get involved in this is like, which, churches should already be good. Like this is sort of supposedly the bread and butter of the local church, right? Is these social relationships. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think this is a good segue to talk about. One of the things that I get to do right now is be on a mission from God with Jason, planting trees around here, and this thing called Treecycle. And so, which is your brainchild from 10 years ago or something, right? Tell us about Treecycle, right? Where trees hop on bikes and cycle around Asheville.
I was, the good things in my life are all based on the company I've kept. And I was keeping company with good bike people recently, or at that time, John Rosenwinkel's, Sig and Eat Well, and some of our friends who were just, either brilliant bike mechanic engineers or just huge fans, all the above, of riding. And I'd been commuting by bike for a few years, about 5 or 6, probably about 8 years. And I love bikes. And of course, I'd been aware of their ecological gifts as an alternative to riding a truck around, which I had previously. I finally had to give the truck away before I would made the leap. I found that on bad weather days, I would just take my truck. And this guy had been bugging me to buy my old Jeep Comanche. I sold it to him for $1. To be fair, it had been sold to me for $1. So
love that.
So then I had to bike, and that's it. There's nothing like have to, right?
Yeah.
And then ran into John and Sagan, who were close neighbors who lived right next to us in Garden Street, and eventually, we were asking ourselves after the IPCC report came out, saying we got 10 years before things break apart and don't come back together, which is actually nowish. And we thought, how do we respond to this? What does our neighborhood need, and what does the world need? And the answer was bikes and trees. Our neighbors ride bikes. A lot of them they're not the right size. They're not working correctly. And then trees. We're in a canopy desert, apartheid, whatever we want to call them. We don't have a lot of trees. We plant, and I don't think we've noted this till now in this interview, but we plant about 80-90% fruit trees. So these trees, in addition to all the things we've been talking about, also feed people. It's not ever going to be a major part of their diet, even though you can eat you can get a lot of your diet from nuts and fruits. And I think the wonderful thing about trees that we've already discussed suggests that we should be getting more food from tree crops. And so, again, we're actually making the world a better place when we do that, especially if they're trees we planted in our neighborhood, right? Because we don't even have to transport them except, say, by bike or foot. So we said trees, and trees and bikes. And then I came up with the name Treecycle, as I do. I come from a long line of dads with dad jokes and puns. So
Yeah.
Treecycle, just kind of riffing on recycle, but also capturing the two things that we decided to find funds to pay youth to do. And about that time, there was a health grant that came open. Actually, I think that's what started entering the conversation, because they visited the farm and they say, hey, we got this health equity grant that we'd like you to think about some things you'd like to do. And it was at the time like a pretty significant grant. And so we came up with this program to hire youth to plant trees and fix bikes, and to learn the skill of taking care of those bikes, how to ride safely. So, our vision is that Nashville would be filled with bikes and trees, and that we would pay youth to do that work, and in so doing become leaders and consciously taking leadership in the environmental uplift of their communities. And paying them, making this their first job. Wouldn't that be great if a conservation job was like their first job? And it has been for many, many youth. And we've been sustained from the health department to Aetna grants to the NRCS of the USDA, and now the Department of Forestry through the American Forest Grant, and a lot of help from the Cumberland River Compact, who are sort of tree heroes in our region, in our watershed.
So good. Yeah, I'll say there's nothing like getting out there and just planting these trees with these kids. And to kids who are like really good at this now. They've been doing it for like some years, and other kids who are like holding a shovel for the first time in their life, and just getting into the work. And I was actually listening to a Nate Bargatze bit last night, and he was talking about how for their mom's birthday they were gonna like dig, put in a koi pond, and he was like just talking about like how hard it is to dig.
I love that bit. I remember it.
he was like, because in movies people just dig stuff, and you're like, oh, this is probably easy. Anyway, and depending on where you're digging, that definitely differs. But yeah, I love that. So like engaging with these tools and these kids in the soil, and often for the first time in their lives, they're putting their hands in the soil, and you and I, we were at a local elementary school, like a few weeks ago, planting some fruit trees with kids there, and the kids just had like at least my group, like that was just, we couldn't even get the hole dug because they had so many questions. And then they kept like pulling things out of the ground and showing me and looking at it, little rocks and things. And it was like an adventure in a moment. We had, and we finally got the tree planted, but it was like the journey was the gift as well.
Yeah. And also tell the listeners about what happened during their recess.
Yeah, so we planted like 4 trees, and we had like 4 more to plant, and we got the 4 trees planted, and these kids had recess period coming up after that, but they were given the option. They could either go to recess, or if they wanted to, they could come plant trees with us for the other half, for their recess time. And I kid you not, these kids were like, we're planting more trees. So
I know, you can't make that up.
Yes, so they gave up their recess time to plant more trees with us.
And the kingdom of God is at hand.
You can't make this stuff up. And it's just like, out of the mouths of babes, out of the shovels of children. And it was just so good.
That was very heart opening for me.
Oh my gosh. And this is the kingdom of heaven. And so that's one of the things that's just so life-giving, is being a part of the program right now. And and that kids get paid to do this. So I've got some numbers here from our last tree cycle season. So this is just the tree part, so we also like pay kids to repair bikes, that's kind of what we're focusing on right now, because tree planting season for us is generally over. for right now. But between October and February this last year, we planted, or youth planted, 376 trees around us, like baller, right?
Mm-hmm.
We employed over 50 youth just this season. And this is the number that like rolls me on the floor. These youth earned over $13,000 planting trees and repairing bikes. This like smashing it, like so good. And so it's just full cycle. See what I did there? It's full cycle coming all the way back around. Like good for everyone involved. And so, yeah. Anyway, and there's a whole nother conversation there. I think we could have at some point just around reconnecting kids with nature. You know, the studies that have been done, the anxious generation, all that. Like you're also combating that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's bigger than ever right now.
Yeah, I love that. And man, how do we get so cool? Oh man, I don't know. It's all the people, right? It's all the cool people doing the cool things. I mean, I feel like it should be a party. You know, I think I took a long road to find this, but I figured if we told people enough about the doom and gloom of what was happening, that it would properly motivate them to get on board and do everything that needed to be done to avert such disaster. But that's not the case, is it? Like that's actually not the strategy. And you turned me on to a YouTube video of a talk the other day. You said it casually, like it wasn't a big deal, and I watched it and I was like, man, this is a big deal. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. The Rick Lindroth talk. Yeah.
It was so good. And he was basically saying the same thing, that he spent so much of his career thinking like if we chronicle the bad news, people are going to respond. And he really brought in wonder, you know, and love. And I think like if we're not the best party in town, if we're not like helping people fall in love with the creatures, including trees around them, if we're not building those kinds of loving relationships, then we're just scaring kids, right? Like there are things coming that are worth averting, but it's really not the fear. The fear will get us far fast, right? That's the point of fear, is it gets you out of danger, helps you run from the hippopotamus or whatever. But that's not a sustaining motivation. Like you can't run a marathon on fear.
Right.
You run a sprint on fear. And we've got a marathon in front of us, and that can only be fueled by love, connection, wonder, you know, and all those heart-opening, you know, compassion as compared to like empathy has a heart opening and a heart healing aspect to it. So instead of like being a sort of almost a harming long-term affect, compassion is a healing affect. It heals everybody. And if you know, we can't build compassion for forests if people don't know their trees. I mean, just introducing them to the names. I mean, this is part of Genesis, right? Is that there's an intimacy involved in naming. And as I went from just seeing tall green things to like, oh, that is a hackberry, that is a cottonwood, that is a maple, you know, that actually bonds me to that tree in a different way. And then learning from books like The Hidden Life of Trees, which is such an interesting book. Books like The Overstory by Richard Powers, which won the Pulitzer Prize, just really help you see these are sentient beings of incredible complexity. And knowing that, having that intimate knowledge and connection with them really changes our relationship to them. And I think we need to be like the best party in town. Like I think we need to be the place where kids want to go, like ask their kids to go, ride their bikes to go. And we have been. That's a really cool thing. And I think part of the thing is the community with each other that they built. It doesn't have anything to do with us in a way. We just kind of set the table and made the introduction, and the magic just happens.
That's right. Fostering the joy that's already wanting to bubble to the surface, you know, and kids bring so much energy. They're already bringing, you know, and so, and part of that is helping them like, hey, let's, you know, you're going to need both hands for this tool. So you're going to have to put that phone down, you know?
Yeah, we talked about this the other day, right?
Yeah,
I was like, I want the kids to be like their hands to be so full of dirt and grease that they don't want to touch their phone.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to get this on my screen. Just leave it in the pocket.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. I wonder, just for maybe a closing couple minutes here, because we're on the heels of Resurrection Sunday, and I think there's a lot worth mentioning in the way of our tree conversation here and the story we find ourselves in. And I remember back in the day, you guys had made a Tribeca Urban Farm shirt, and on the back it was just this one like 2-word quote from Wendellberry that just said "Practice Resurrection," which I love. And similarly, there's a well-worn quote from N.T. Wright that's something like, Jesus is coming, so plant a tree. And I'm curious for you, what surfaces there? What's underneath that for us, do you think, as a resurrection people?
I love those quotes. I think we are not passive recipients of hope. Hope is a verb, I've been taught. Hope is something that it's a grace, but it's also a grace that is only found in active participation with the work of hope, right? And so the most hopeful people aren't the people that ignore problems or avoid them, but the people I see most hopeful are people who are often working in the depths of trouble, but they believe in the efficacy of what they're doing. They believe in the vision they've been given. And so the work of hope, I think, is, despite the burning forests, or maybe because of them, despite the public turn, the government's releasing of undoing of protections for these forests, like keep planting trees, like right where you are. Don't stop advocating, don't stop writing letters and supporting organizations that fight the good fight in policy issues, which matter tremendously. But if we're doing that when we're not planting our own gardens and our own orchards, then we're kind of missing the joy of practicing resurrection, which doesn't just happen to us, right? We participate in resurrection. I remember this description of an old lady sitting in her garden at the end of her life, writing down all the things she was going to put in her garden, and it said she was plotting for the resurrection. And I love that, right? She was plotting the resurrection. And so, as gardeners and tree planters, we see it every year. I mean, Easter's around the time when things just emerge from seeming death. And we get to participate in that and experiencing the joy of people that not only hope in the resurrection, but also practice.
That's so good. That's so good. Just came to my mind, like last night, it's our kids have had just like epic Resurrection Sunday, and TBH, I'm a little like, what does it mean to be like a little hungover from Resurrection Sunday, right now? And it was good when you're just anyway. So I'm tucking in my youngest daughter daily last night at bedtime, and you always toggle between like what your kids are catching and you realize there's just moments you can't force; they just have to come on their own. And last night at bedtime, she's just like starts asking me these sort of like resurrection Easter centered questions, and it was like a really great bedtime chat, and it's like, oh yeah, like we do believe that. Or she was like, what happened? Oh, it started with like Lazarus, and she was like, well, where did Lazarus go after Jesus raised him from the dead? And I was like, well, he died again. And she was like, well, did Jesus die again? And I was like, oh no, like we believe in the ascension, and we got to talk about that and Jesus coming back and all that, and we got to talk about grand and seeing grand again, and then she just and then she's just like, when Jesus comes back, I'm serious, she just said this. She goes, when Jesus comes back, what do you think he's going to do with all the technology that harms the earth? And I'm like, I'm like, my child, and just like rolling the floor.
Such a great question.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this kind of reminds me of like, and practicing resurrection, and I was like, we hope and we pray that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and that we get the opportunity right now to practice that and to implement and build the kind of world we believe that is the coming of God's kingdom here. And and like, it's so mysterious on some hand, but another hand, it's like, this is planting a tree together. And anyway, she's got me cooking. It was like a perfect mic drop into the Resurrection Sunday.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What a great question.
I know.
I love that.
I know. Well, thanks for spending some time with me here and marinating on all this.
Good talking with you.
Yeah. Jesus is coming, friends. Plant a tree. I don't think any extra practical tip is needed today. I'm just going to leave that there. I mean, it would be the world to connect with you, friends. Shoot me an email. Share about how you or your church is connecting with creation this spring. Maybe we'll do some shout outs in the show. If you want to see these conversations grow, I'll say it again, would love to have an online review from you, or click a heart, anything you can. Subscribe to this situation right here, even over the Substack, where I try to throw some extra content. You can support the show that way. Okay, friends, to close, I want to offer one of those prayers from my new book. And I've had lots of people been asking me about these prayers, and in the show notes, I've actually included these prayers for you if you're interested. But let me offer this one for us today. Creator God, remind us, we pray, of who we are in you. Remind us that our worth is not contingent upon our production, but rooted in your love. Remind us that we are your children. God, give us the patience and grace to aim for your kingdom, we pray. Help us to seek your face with our whole hearts in your kingdom above all else. Jog our memory that we may reorient our entire lives around the economy of your kingdom, as it is the only place in which flourishing occurs. Amen, y'all.